storytelling is literally probably the most important thing we can do as humans. Like it's literally the way we connect with other people. It's the way we bond with others in times of need. It's like a visual language almost, like with movies, even with books, stories. Like it's literally the foundation of the human experience is telling good stories. And I think also when it comes to more pressing world issues like mental health awareness, suicide awareness, even that's even more important to tell like a story, right? Someone's like hidden story, someone that's been struggling with something that can almost like open up to a bigger cause and sort of spread awareness for a certain issue. So obviously, Sam, you just released a documentary called Afterglow that's centered around suicide awareness. Was it about like a month ago ish?
Yeah, month and a half. Yeah.
And we obviously all had a hand in production. Nick and I, we were doing camera operating. You also edited the bulk of it. But Sam, you were sort of the guy who kind of kickstarted this whole film. Could you just go into sort of like what this film is about and how it sort of came to be?
Yeah, sure. So I didn't originally think it was going to be so heavily into suicide awareness. The original plan was I knew this guy, John, who I met through Anthony at Wolfscart. Met him at Wolfscart, wanted to film his car because he's got a beautiful BMW E9, soup to nuts, like and everything's done to it from scratch.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And I knew about the story of him and his son and what happened on a very surface level because, whenever he goes to a show, he puts up posters and things like that, magazines telling about the story, where he's been, where the car's been, etc. And, I wanted to make a film. I love cars. I'm passionate about them.
Yeah, you do a lot of car content.
I wanted to make a film around that and telling his story because I don't think it was shared enough. What I didn't know was how deep it went and how it affects so many other people that's not really talked about.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things in terms of parents talking to their kids about sex, drugs, etc. But I don't think suicide and suicide awareness is really a huge topic or should be talked about as much as should be. So when we start to film this, we found out very quickly that this is going to be something big and something that really needs to be shown.
So the whole like idea of the film and you learning the story, because I know we went to that garage. We went to John, is his name, his garage for the first time. And you just kind of saw it as like a cool BMW on Instagram that you wanted to just kind of film as a feature on Wolfscart. Like Nick was running around doing stuff at Wolfscart. Zach was there as well. This was 2024 Wolfscart. When did you find out that it was like a bigger sort of story? Because it's like I don't really remember too much about our like visit there. We did the feature, and then where was that space in between, like of doing that feature at Wolfscart, being in touch with him, and then wanting to like pitch this idea to him to do this whole like production?
So I'd actually seen his car a few years prior at Wolfscart. Wolfscart is a crazy big show. It's a lot to film, very hectic. So I never got around to shooting it, but I really wanted to. So the year that we went was obviously the year that we shot it. And I knew, like I was saying, a little bit about him and his sons and family's story, but I didn't know to what extent. So when we went to the garage there, I saw the whiteboard with the list of mods that him and his son were doing or wanted to do. I saw pamphlets. I saw pictures of his son AJ up there. It was at that moment I realized that this was definitely this is going to turn into more than a feature after Wolfscart.
Sure,
for sure. So after Wolfscart, I believe it was maybe like a month or so after, I had texted John because when I met him, I got a good feeling from him that he was like an open guy.
Yeah, he
sales
seems pretty
type,
open.
very very well off and talking and stuff. So I messaged him and basically broke down like what I wanted to do to tell his story. And right off the bat, he immediately said, yes, let's do it.
But you knew, like, once you saw those cues and like the meaningfulness, this potential story that can be told, like you were just on it. You just knew that it had to be
it was almost like a series of like breadcrumbs or like, things that led me to actually asking him. Because if I if I had just like went up to him at the show and be like, "Hey, can we
Yeah.
film this?" It obviously wouldn't have worked, or maybe it would have. It just would have been more awkward.
And did you and Nick sort of do like a lot of planning in the early stages? Like when you pitch it to him, did you go to like Nick and then sort of like map out, how are we actually gonna do this in what order? Because we did also the Land Tech documentary, and you also edited that too.
Yeah, I feel like in the beginning it was like a little looser, like and more just like let's see what he has to say, let's film, like let's try and get
Yeah.
as much content as we could,
Mhm.
and then when we decided that we were gonna probably have to go back, that's when we really started like
Mm-hmm.
going down into like what exactly we really want. Because like I mean, doing all these car things like back like all the time, like I mean, we know we're gonna get like a little bit of interview stuff. We're
Sure.
gonna shoot the car. We're gonna do rollers. We're gonna take it places that look cool and stuff like that. But like you don't really get the like meaning and like the stuff behind like what like really sets the movie apart a little bit more of
Mm-hmm.
like the undertones and like oh like maybe we'll take the car somewhere special like for like both like AJ and John and that's I think where the thought really started getting a little
Yeah,
bit more
I think
sense.
what happened was that we had a general game plan. I wrote down. I'd done a lot of research on John and Afterglow and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and I wrote down questions that I wanted to ask him and all this stuff. I didn't realize the depth that John would go during the interview to really tell this story, and which would end up requiring us to have to go and
Yeah.
shoot way more, which was beneficial for everybody.
So let's talk about that because we started with interviews, I believe, when we went
Mhm.
there when we went there in November.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
like
interviews
middle
first.
Yep.
middle of November, we did interviews first in his garage. Perfect, also like perfect set that we did with the
Mhm.
lights and everything. You had kept a document around, right?
Mhm.
That was like your pre-production sort of thing.
Yeah,
you
it was my
made?
shot list of questions.
So how long did it take to like finalize that, and how was that process with John, like sort of finalizing everything that would, like, because you don't really know what's appropriate to kind of go into with something as sensitive as suicide.
Mhm.
So where was that line drawn, and how was that process, like getting that document final?
Getting the document final to me, I had a end goal in mind, but I don't think there really was a true end goal until we end up having to interview him, because I don't know the direction that it was going to go exactly. I knew the story, of course, on a surface level, but I didn't know how deep that went. And for me to just pre-plan some sort of ending, sure I can do, but it might not do the film justice the
Yeah.
way it should, the way John explains it.
So it's almost like, okay, let's go in, like I know what I know going into this documentary. Let's ask those questions and see where it takes us, right? And then, but you almost have to have that sort of buffer of like questions, because like you don't know the full story really. You don't know what he's going to say. So it's almost like, okay, this is my safety net. Okay, and then we're going to expand. If he does expand in the interview, great. If he doesn't, we'll contain it to those questions. We're still like good. But I think a key point was what you said about how when he started going into these points, now there was so much more to film and so much more to dive into. And that garage interview was probably like 2 hours.
Maybe more. But I think what was the important thing is John is very well spoken, which was extremely beneficial and helpful to us. However, in his situation and others we've dealt with too, you might have a pre-written list of questions that you want to ask, but on the fly, to really extract what you need, you have to really be intently listening and ask more questions based off of what they've said.
Yeah, you
Because
have to be paying attention,
Yeah.
like super close attention.
Well,
for
that's
listening.
well,
Yeah.
like so we were more of in the operating position, and I
Yeah.
saw you, Sam. You had the red on the floor, but you were in like a stool, like far removed from the camera, with your sheet of questions, like intently, like listening to what he's saying and like following up. And
Yeah.
is that sort of a skill you had to learn through doing more interviews and being like, okay, I know how I'm supposed to interview someone to get the most out of what they're saying.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was definitely not great at it at the beginning. I consider myself extroverted and able to talk to people
Yeah.
easily. That's not the problem. It's figuring out what they're really saying and how you can extract more out of it. And actually, I've learned a lot from Nick in doing just general basic interviews for companies or promotional videos for companies where I'll think I'm asking a good question, and then Nick comes in with some curveball that like makes the person talk for like 10 minutes about something I wouldn't even thought of.
Well, Nick, you even did that on the comic interviews too.
Yeah,
Like you're
definitely.
good at that. You kind of hear what we're not
Yeah,
hearing.
I'm trying to like listen, and like the thing for me is like if I have a question about the thing that he's talking about, like I'll just like sit there, listen, and like, all right, like is my question about to be
Yeah.
answered or no? And if not, I'm gonna ask the question. Like
Mhm.
you're gonna be listening to these things, and you're gonna be like, oh, really? Like I wonder how that happened. Like I wonder,
Yeah.
and like if it's an appropriate enough question, like ask. Like
Yeah.
you
Well,
gotta ask.
this is why it's important to have like
Yeah.
a really good crew around you, because myself or anybody else who's a director, can go in the direction that they want to, of course,
Sure.
but you're not going to be able to think of everything, especially if
Yeah.
you're thinking about a million other things:
Yeah.
lighting, cameras, angles, lenses, what to do next, where are we going, timing, all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So having a team around you, because when you're focused on so many different things, you can't focus on the one thing all the time,
Of
even
course.
if you're really trying to lock in. So having like 1, 2, 3 people on the side who are a part of your team who are also great at what they do is very beneficial.
Yeah.
What would you say is like the percent split of questions that were planned and questions that kind of came from just following up on something unexpected, he might say?
I would say 60 to 70% were planned. However, that 30 to 40% that weren't planned were probably some of the best answers we could have gotten
Mhm.
for the film.
Yeah, I feel
for sure.
like the questions definitely were great. Like I
Mhm.
think you prepared really good questions, and that like extracted
Mm.
more story from John, and then from that like listening, like paying attention, and like at least like from my angle is like thinking about like okay, like what has he said, and like where can we go with the story, like think of
Yeah.
it as an editor, and like say like hey, okay, like this, like he brought up this point, this point, this point, like where's the home run, like where's the sauce, where's the
Mhm.
extra, like the extra emotion that you can extract, and like thinking about it, and like okay, like I have like a good resolution, I have a good like
Mhm.
opening, I have a good this, like
Mhm.
I need more, like I need whatever it is, a more
Mhm.
emotion, whatever it is, like that's where those questions start to
And I
come
think the
from.
great thing about him is that if we asked him one question and like maybe broke it off and asked him another one a minute or two, right in the middle of a sentence, he's very good at flowing.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
when you
Mm.
don't have somebody that when you have somebody that isn't good at that, it's
It
it's
gets
tougher to
tougher, it gets
link everything
distracted,
together,
yeah.
and it's tougher to extract like raw emotion out of things.
Well, one point on yours, Nick, what you said about like thinking about the edit while you're shooting, I think that's so important with documentaries because you kind of have to rely on the interview footage and what he
Absolutely.
says to make the rest of the film. It's not like a narrative where you have planned lines. It's like
Yeah, it's the vehicle of like
yeah,
to get you from like whatever you want to get across. It's that.
like
It's
you
that.
said, it
Yeah,
like
yeah.
defined everything moving forward of what we had to shoot, like our second trip up. Like this all
Mhm.
defined that one interview. So like to people who want to get into documentaries, like the interview is the most
Absolutely.
important aspect,
Yeah.
and all your time and effort should be to number one being like having a good presence on interview day,
Mhm.
but also having that pre-production plan.
Yeah.
You know, to be able to say, okay, what do I know? What do I not know? Where's
Mhm.
that middle, and how can we expand on it? Do you think that there's an importance to letting them pause? Like so, like let's say he answers a question,
Mhm.
but you don't jump in. You like wait a little bit, and then he says something
There's
more.
there's an art to that for
Yeah.
sure in terms of letting someone wait, breathe, think, or let them ramble and then figuring out if you need to cut
Yeah.
them off or not. There's definitely an art to it, especially in this sort of scenario where it's a very emotional piece.
Very
You know, that
sensitive.
very
Yeah.
sensitive. He's going
Yeah.
to be thinking. He's going to be upset. It's one of those things where you have to really be delicate with the situation. And I think probably 45 minutes into that interview, I already knew that we would need to shoot more
Yeah.
based upon what he's
Yeah.
saying. Did I know how much? Not exactly.
Yeah.
I found that out once Nick really started to put the video together, and we really saw the gaps that we
Yeah.
needed, which sometimes you just can't plan for that sort of thing. It's one thing if, you go on like a month-long excursion to film a documentary, and
Yeah.
that's the only time that you have. But with this piece, it's right in our backyard, 5 hours away, whatever it
Yeah.
is. And we knew we could go back there and film
Mhm.
whatever else we needed
Yeah.
to.
I remember like looking at you, like the interview went so well actually that like I was like, okay, like from the questions that we even like asked on top of the questions that you had prepared, I'm like, all right, like there's a story here. There's a full story. Like I don't even think that we need to interview anymore. Like I
Mhm.
don't think there's anything left to talk about. And I
Mhm.
think from there, I remember looking at you and being like, we're gonna need to come back. I was like, dude, like,
Yeah.
we need to come back because there's like just not enough time to get all these layers. Like I'm thinking about all these places that he's talked about, all these people that he's like linked with in his
Yeah.
past,
Mm-hmm.
all of like the Afterglow stuff, all of the like the help centers that they've gone to, like all the special locations that they wanted to go to, and we start looking like, oh, can we make it to J Peak on this trip?
Mhm.
Can we do all the like? Can we go like an hour
How
away?
long was the
Like,
trip? I don't remember the first length of
It was
the
2
first
days.
trip.
It was
The
2
f-
days.
yeah,
Yeah.
the first one we drove up. It was 2 days. First trip, we drove up super early, got there, set up all the lighting,
Yeah, I
cameras,
remember
etc.
that.
Did the interview, and then that was pretty much it for that day. The second day, we filmed a lot of B-roll that we needed to, and then drove home that day.
Yeah. So it was
Um,
like barely. 2
Well,
days,
J
like,
Peak was
Yeah.
when because that was the first trip.
Yeah, JP
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the second
That was
day.
on
We
the
did
second
we
day.
did a lot. Yeah.
Second day, first trip, yeah, and we
Yeah.
wrapped after JP.
And remember during the edit, we had found that an interview setting beautifully lit, multiple angles looks great.
Mm-hmm.
But the video needs to be more dynamic and not just in the B-roll sense of the car, etc. So we found that bringing John out of the chair and actually bringing him places and talking helped the flow of the documentary overall.
definitely split it up a little bit. It broke it up.
Yeah, broke it
was
up
good.
so much more and made it way more dynamic.
So it's not like a sit down interview per se, but it's more like a walk and talk type of thing, like just to sprinkle like dynamic scenes and areas.
It's like a walk and talk day.
It's like
not
on
a day in the life on
location.
location.
It's like
still
like,
run and
what-
gun.
Like yeah, it's like a vehicle
'cause-
to get us from point A to point B. Sometimes like we put
Mhm.
you in the car a couple of
So I
times.
remember, like that was good because that was kind of like just in the moment, like,
Yeah.
yo, Tony, just go in the car, like grab the FX6, just start asking questions about like AJ's car.
Where are we
Sometimes you
going?
guys just
Where
do
are we
shit.
going?
You just gotta go.
No, like where are we headed to next?
Yeah.
And like knowing John, like
Well,
he
here's
starts
another
going
thing.
on,
Yeah.
like-
Well, sometimes basic questions are
Yeah,
fine.
definitely.
Just start the
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah.
Going back to the pause thing, I was very like conscious of waiting before I asked another question, especially when he was driving. When we were going to, I think the last location was the cemetery,
Mhm.
and I was in the car with John while we were going there, and I asked him like, "Where are we going?" And he said, AJ's grave, and then I let him pause,
Yeah, you need those.
and then he
That's so
started
important.
talking more, and
Yeah.
then like that's where that that punch was.
Yeah.
So, I used to always be like, this is just in general documentary shooting, but I always used to be like, okay, like next question. But it's like, no, just
Slow
take
down.
your time,
Yeah.
slow down, because you never know where those punch points.
Sure.
will be.
But on the flip side of that too is when you have someone who isn't like John and
Ramble.
they take a pause, you should already have another question hopefully preloaded to ask them if they can't think of anything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it's not awkward and they can flow into the next
Yeah.
thing that they want to talk
Yeah,
about.
but that like moment too, like usually is extra emotion, adds extra emotion
Gotcha.
at the end, and like sometimes it's a perfect vehicle or segue or a transition into the next part of a film or something, and it's like
Yeah.
and
yeah.
like whatever he says, and like he finishes, and you just hear the car driving, and you see him sitting there like looking out, like just, and then like. That's the
Yeah.
transition into boom, we're at the grave. Like that's what you need, rather than just like cut
Yeah,
hard
hard
cut. 'Cause
cut.
you're like, oh, what about
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you like
yeah.
asking the next.
There's a lot of
question.
J cuts.
Yeah, definitely a lot of J
Because
cuts.
I see a lot of documentaries, even like on Netflix.
Mhm.
They hold on the person.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then like they give it because like let's say they say something
Breathing room.
impactful, you want to hold on their face, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to necessarily use that portion of what they're talking about. Let's say like they went into something else right after. You just take a B-roll part of them like not doing anything and just put that over to like add that extra impact to it.
Absolutely.
So we went on that first trip,
Mm-hmm.
right? We shot. It was mainly rollers. We got drone shots. We hit sort of like the general locations that thought would work in the film.
Mhm.
So then, what was the timeline of editing? Because we got back from the trip. When did like Nick start going into stuff? When did you like? really-
That's a good question. I think it was pretty much immediately.
It was immediately just took a while because we were doing so many other things
Yeah.
at the same time.
yeah, we
this was
always do.
this was a
Yeah.
passion piece for us. So it wasn't did we want to finish it? Sure, but
Yeah.
other stuff had to come first. So it took longer than expected, but in a way, it was a good thing because it allowed us time to think more about what
definitely.
we actually needed.
Yeah, I think it was important to like begin by cutting out all the interview stuff. Like,
Sure.
like get back and like, I mean, like when it's fresh in your head, like that's
Sure.
the best time to
Sure.
start really diving into, especially interview stuff, because you just go through, you know what you're looking for the most part. You kind of remember like at what point did he say certain things, and just start clipping everything, and then you can take a break from the project for a little while.
You think
Cause
so?
like
Yeah.
I think so, cause like once you pull out like all the spaces, the ands, the uhs, and like yeah, just like then you've now listened to it twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now like you've now thought about it twice, like you heard it for the first time where you're also trying to think of questions. So you're like you're paying attention, but like there's a lot also
So
going on in your head. But when you're sitting there at the editing table and then you listen to it again, now you have like now you know the story pretty well.
do you think there's a power to sort of like letting footage sit for a minute? At least for me, like I'll go to a different project, let's say I shot like a creative piece, really passionate about it. There's always been a benefit to just letting that footage sit for a little bit because I just shot it, like I'm really excited about it, but then I go back to it and I have a whole different outlook on it. Did you see that helping in your favor?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's always really important to let anything marinate because like you just like learn more somehow
Yeah,
by like walking away. I don't know, like you like pigeonhole yourself in like tunnel vision sometimes, and you're like, okay, like I have all this like this interview stuff, and I only have this amount of footage. Then you're only thinking of like, oh, like creating the whole documentary with like the limited footage that you have. But
sure.
like no, like taking a walk from it and like watching it again and watching the footage again and like being like, all right, like we have to go back. Like we have to go back. Like this can go so many different routes.
The
and
problem was that
that's
we couldn't let it marinate for too long because
yeah.
we had a
You
deadline for
did
the
have a
Motor Film
deadline.
Awards, which I think we made a day and a half before the
So
deadline,
Yeah.
the
was
last deadline.
Super
was
close.
this always in your mind as like Motive Film Awards from the get go?
Yeah, totally.
So this was definitely a piece. I mean, it
Mm.
combines all the elements for a successful.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I wanted to make for the Motor Film Awards. Love cars. I've been wanting to do a documentary piece for a long time, and this story had to be told.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like one of the in the car sphere at least. Like it's one of the more like impactful stories to be able to tell. So you look through the footage. We got back, looked through the footage, and then when was that call? We were like, all right, like we got to plan like another trip because we went in November. You got back, you looked over the winter sort of like through the footage,
Yeah.
and then we didn't go back till when did we go back? It's like
A couple
such
months ago
fever dream.
now. I
don't
mean,
remember.
Yeah,
when did
it
we
wasn't that
release
long.
summer,
it?
right?
Yeah.
It was-
May. Yeah, it was mid-May.
Really?
yeah.
Yeah.
I
I think
think
May
so.
15th or 16th.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the deadline was
shit.
end of June.
So
Yeah, it was tight, super tight.
So
deadline.
okay, so this is like
Yeah.
another great topic. Like now, you have this hard deadline that's coming up. No, you know that you had to go back.
Mhm.
How do you make it work? What's the plan going in for the second time?
Well, I knew for a fact that we had to go back when Nick showed me the timeline, and I'm seeing sufficient gaps in
Yeah.
just the
B-roll,
talking
yeah.
segments. And it's not, Nick cut out as much talking stuff as he could, but we couldn't cut out really anymore because it's all important. So we knew we had to go
Yeah.
back and film some more stuff. So immediately, I think what took a little bit longer to schedule was just John's schedule because he was busy during the summer
Sure.
too. And, this is time out of his day, even though, he wants to do this,
Sure.
still got to make time for it and everything. So it took a few weeks to even get a date locked in, really. And then from there, once we locked the date, and I was like, all right, this is the gear that we're going to need. This is what we need to film because we know what we need to film now. And if we get any extra besides that, then amazing.
It's quite nice to be in that situation where you like kind of know, like you've seen like what the product could be, and like marrying some of those, like some of that content, and like knowing you have the good content already, like the meat and the potatoes
Sure.
of everything, and being like, oh, we just need to like put the
Yeah.
icing on the cake and marry visuals to it. Like that's nice being. In
So
that
yeah, but like we had the luxury of doing
Definitely,
that. Some
definitely.
people that's
No,
just
you-
like
you
you're
gotta-
there,
you're-
you
yeah.
have to get it.
You have to
or else
start
you're
thinking of
done.
those.
Well, you have
like,
to you have to
interesting
get
things
it there,
quick.
or you have to figure it out in post, which is obviously not always ideal. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Especially
again,
for
like,
something like this, where it's like
Yeah.
real events, real people. Like this is important
sure.
stories. So we go back. We went back for longer than 2 days, like our initial.
No,
trip.
No, it was 2 days.
It was even
It
shorter.
seems long. It seems much longer in hindsight.
Yeah, it's just because
Yeah.
we're doing
The
so
amount
much in
of-
such a little amount of time. But no, we flew in like mid-morning, early
That's right,
afternoon.
we did fly in.
Yeah, a little easier, sort of.
Yeah.
Ended up being almost like the same
bit
time between
delays in the-
traveling, but it
yeah.
was at least we didn't have to like drive. Yeah, got there, filmed that whole day, filmed the morning of the next day, and then flew out. And that was it.
Yeah, it was like
It was tight.
shorter than the first time we went.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, honestly, imagine if we stayed one more day, then in theory we would have submitted it a half a day before the deadline.
literally. Yeah.
Time crunch.
Yeah.
Wait, so we went back, we got all that footage, then you went back to the editing board.
Mm-hmm.
When was that final cut after that sort of trip?
After the trip, was the final cut was one day before like
So that was,
submission
I'm
time.
trying to think that was like a month.
It
then.
was it was about a month. It was about
Well, because we had sent it to John also, seeing if everything was fine. Then we had to add in certain credits and other things. So it might have been a couple days before like deadline.
It was on a Saturday night. I got it to him, I think.
Yeah,
And
that
then
was the
we had
final one.
Yeah, and then
Sunday
I made it like a couple of not
Yeah.
revisions, but like additions, like
Yeah.
To enhance it, or?
like not really, just to like make like I didn't know like everybody's like in his family, like really.
Sure.
So like I had just like I had to add like
Yeah.
some pictures of certain people
Mhm.
that he had mentioned. I just you don't know who you're looking at. So
But like the second shoot was much tighter in terms of the vision. Like we
Mhm.
yeah,
were
we
able to accomplish.
we accomplished that and more
Yeah.
with the second. I mean, I had a list of things to give to Sam of like what we needed,
Mhm.
like just based on I went like just so we have an idea of like how that like editing process, I guess, kind of
Yeah, yeah.
if this might
Yeah,
is
sure.
more
Yeah.
relevant.
People just don't even realize how much really goes into this.
Yeah.
Because
at all.
that's like shootings maybe what 30%
yeah,
of the whole project.
yeah,
Like the
Literally.
editing for a documentary is probably longer than like a narrative.
it's
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you don't have like a plan.
No, you have to
Mhm.
listen to everything.
Yeah,
So
and
like
go
every time you
through.
listen to it, it's time. It's just
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Even if I
absolutely.
listen to everything on 2 times speed and it's still
Yeah.
you're watching something that's 3 hours long, it's still an hour and a half of time.
Just
So-
for one
People
go.
might not even realize that it's not linear, right?
Yeah.
So you're going through 3-4 hours of interview footage and telling the story in the most dynamic way possible, so it
100%.
ebbs and flows properly.
Yeah,
it's
moving
not just
everything
A to Z.
around based on how
Yeah,
he
so
said
like
it.
you're saying like how you shoot it chronologically isn't how the edit will go. It's
Yeah,
about
not all
like
the
this
time.
story of, and you have to like extract different parts of like what
Yeah.
people are saying to like make this story that like makes sense.
You have no
Absolutely.
idea, like especially in this like scenario, like at what point is the emotion going to come out? Like at what point is like some of the hard hitting parts coming out?
So
Until
with
you're-
the edit, did you have an idea of how you wanted the beginning to go? And did it change? Like because it's a very important, especially with documentaries, not planned really. Getting that intro nailed down, the tone of like what you're going into, something like suicide awareness. How do you like make sure that the viewer knows like, okay, buckle up, like this is real.
The intro, I think, was what gave the fervor to go back, like even more. I think it's like I nailed down like a pretty solid intro
Mm-hmm.
first, just to see like if it would be impactful, right? So I could show somebody, and it's like a 1.5-minute intro, and like if that hits, then like that's 1.5 minutes of a 2-hour long interview that like is full of stuff that's heavy hitting. So like I started
Mhm.
there with like introducing the car, the
Yeah.
the situation, and like I'll bring a little bit of that emotion in, and then make you wait. Like that was the idea, at least. And
Make you
then
wait.
give a little bit of time before we get back into that problem, because like
Yeah.
there's still more in there that we have to talk about.
'Cause
that's
it's
not
hard, like,
emotional.
It's hard like to cross the lines of like, okay, this is like categorized as an automotive film,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So like where's that line, especially like for Motive Film Awards, right?
Mhm.
And obviously that's like secondary to the project. Like obviously it's more like about the message and obviously like spreading the awareness. But
Mhm.
when you think about it from a car like film lens, where's that line of like,
Definitely.
okay, this is a car film. So do we start with the car and like show the cool like nerdy car stuff about it that like car nuts would love?
Yeah.
Or do we go into the problem first?
No,
Come
I
back to
think
it?
the way he put it together was great, because, like you were saying, the intro piece, 3 minutes long or so, really like hits pretty much all the boxes of what's going on. And then because it is a motor film award or vehicle specific type of video, the 10 minutes after that, the whole film is 41 minutes long. The 10 minutes after that is heavy car stuff. So for all the car nuts, especially ones in the BMW land that love his E9
Mhm.
and that want to know about it, he tells you everything about it. We pretty much got it to the point where it was just about to be too much, and then
Yeah.
everything flips. And then
Yeah.
that's when it like really dives in
Yeah,
to
and
everything
it's
else.
tough too with that kind of like with this kind of edit too, because it's like when it starts getting emotional and starts getting intense, like you can't
It's hard to
be
pull out of
you
that.
can't be throwing in fucking advertisements.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like watching
And also, like,
an
I don't
Amazon
want to
ad.
watch
Yeah.
a 41-minute film of just sadness.
Exactly, exactly. So you have to be able to like sprinkle some stuff in here and there, but like if we're doing like we're chatting about how the like all the custom parts of the car, like if you put that in the middle of like a
Yeah.
Throws everything
emotional
off.
point, it's literally like watching an ad.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like
Yeah.
this makes no sense. Like
Yeah.
so that was a interesting little dance of like bringing the car stuff back and bringing it full circle and like and that was interesting.
So the intro, was sort of clear. Like, okay, we're gonna go into the problem or the car, the problem, and sort of like plant that seed.
Yeah.
The middle chunk. I feel like the middle chunk is also difficult for a
Yeah.
documentary. It's like where do we go from here? Like,
Yeah.
do we obviously when you introduce the problem, you don't really take out. You want to kind of dig deeper.
Yeah.
And was the middle more geared towards the problem? And did that change more for you? Like what?
So
That middle portion,
yeah.
the middle ground, I feel like is rough because it's like, how do you pace it right, and how do you not like bore the viewer, but like you don't want to make it too slow.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
I think that was definitely challenging for a little bit. I wasn't sure what to do for a little bit. I was just using the interview for a little while.
Yeah.
And
Well, the interview's guiding you like to place. 'Cause
Yeah.
You just essentially place the interview clips on the big.
Yeah, I
timeline,
made a
and
story of like what I thought like would make sense of like time skipping and like putting certain parts wherever and like and I looked at the format overall of it and said like, all right, like here's like an introduction, like here's stuff about the car, here's stuff about like AJ, and then like here's like, and I wanted to make sure that everything was like for the most part somewhat evenly spaced out. Like if you look at it as a whole, it's always important to zoom in and out of that timeline and like look as a whole, is this heavy weighted on one side or another side? Like, and I remember when I was like getting into that midpoint, I started getting into more of the emotional stuff, and that stuff for me, like I usually thrive in that kind of stuff when I'm editing. So like that was another challenge of like not getting too emotional and just like downhill spiraling into just sadness, like which is like I like that's like a crutch for me. It's like usually I fall into that hole a lot. So that was where it was interesting, like picking up the interviews that you were doing in the car and then having the idea and looking at the footage that you took from the original Wolfsgard and using the car footage as a vehicle to get to the places that he's talking about in his interview. And like it worked perfectly somehow. I don't even know how like it
Sometimes
just,
though, that's like how it happens.
Yeah.
right?
Sometimes it
It's
just falls into place the
like,
way it should.
Yeah, like in the edit, like you would have never. Obviously, if you think about the edit when you shoot, but like sometimes it's just wow. Like, you take a look back and you're like, it just all somehow.
And that was taking steps away and coming back and taking steps away and getting more footage and like seeing other stuff and seeing like, oh, like you have a shot of the garage opening, like, and the car pulling out. Like we didn't do that in like either of the times. And it's like, okay, like this is the stuff that's gonna be like starting the show now.
Yeah.
The crazy thing about this too is that he was handling the whole edit, right? I knew he was going to do a great job in it. I didn't know how good of a job. When I told him I wanted him to edit it, I didn't want to see anything. I didn't even see the first like real cut until like months after the shoot because I was just like
so close to the deadline.
Yeah,
like,
close to the deadline. I was just like, take your vision and go with it. Now, sometimes it's great to have people within your team kind of review and see how it can make make something better. But in certain situations like this, when it's so it's just a heavy documentary, right? He just needs to take the reins on it, and towards the 3/4 of the way, once he's done with the edit or close to done with the edit, that's when you can tighten things up a bit.
Sure.
But I didn't see almost anything until close to the deadline. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like I know like the way too, like as I was editing and like structuring the whole thing too, I made it so that things can be shifted like
Sure, like
simply and
almost
easily.
like
I blocked
yeah.
them and like I tried not to trap myself in a hole where like I'm following music patterns, certain music patterns too much, or I'm following like story patterns too much, or like I was giving chunks of like 2 and 3 minutes, like trying to keep things like
Mhm.
so that I have opportunities to start flipping and flopping them. And I did that a lot. I flip flopped like timing of things
Mhm.
a lot based on like what he was talking about. And
Just to see like which one hit and kind of
yeah, definitely.
rewatching, seeing what
Exactly.
works.
Exactly. Back and forth.
So then, obviously we had a very tight deadline,
Mhm.
like you said, submitted the day before. You don't really have like the luxury of saying, okay, it's done, like we're done, because you kind of just have to submit it at that point. But like,
Mhm.
did you know there was a point where like, okay, this is final. This is what we're
I think
looking
it was only
for.
final because we really had a deadline. I mean, with any
Exactly.
project,
Yeah.
really,
It
like
could have kept going. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we could have probably turned that documentary up another tenfold if
Yeah.
we like really had the time, wanted. I mean, would want
But you
to,
think
but
there's a benefit to just like having that, like said, deadline to just like, okay, like sometimes you can't like go too much because then you start changing everything and like
Mhm.
maybe it deviates from the original
Yeah,
purpose,
you need to have a happy medium with it for sure.
Definitely. I'm
I
happy
think we
medium's
were at
good.
a good point with it to where like yeah, it was the deadline, but like it was at a
Because
great
then
point.
then you're like not wasting time, but it's just like you're putting too much time into something. That's like, okay, this is like not being a dead horse, but it's like, okay,
Yeah,
this is
something
done.
that's not really going to be hugely beneficial to anybody,
It's
really.
the impact of when the extra time that you're adding into it
Yeah,
versus like the outcome. And
Mhm.
like where that's a fine line to
sure.
start walking.
So, but you had to have John review it, no?
Mhm.
So then, like within that day, you had him just watch it real quick before you submitted.
He had watched it, I believe it was a couple times because we just need to make sure the names and stuff were in there. And I think he
Yeah.
watched it once. He's like, it's great, perfect. And then I think a day later, whatever, we need to add in like another title or something like that. And
Not to
yeah,
cut you off, but I remember too that before we went back to refilm,
mhm.
we had sent him the like ultra rough draft of
Oh,
like
that's right. I
basically
forgot about
just the
that.
interview, like
It was their
as it
interview, no
was, and
Really?
he
color.
was like, you
In
can
love with
release
it.
it now.
Yeah.
So that made me say, I was like, all right, like whatever I do moving forward, like
I love it.
it's gonna be crazy for
Well,
him then.
Yeah.
It's
yeah,
like,
this is one of those
Because this is his
situations where
story,
yeah,
like it's like it's
it's his
his
story and
discretion.
he's never had something as high level, put together like this.
Production.
So even something, it could have been a 2 hour long doc of him just talking in the chair, raw, no
Just
sound
B-roll,
design, no color,
understand.
nothing. And he would have loved it because he appreciates what we're doing. But
Yeah.
obviously, we're gonna deliver
we
the
were gonna
best
Yeah.
send
that
it,
we
yeah,
can.
send
Of
it a little
course.
bit, yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Like, you know, you obviously have to look out for like client approvals and whatnot, and
Sure.
like, but I think even for something like this, I would say even more when you're talking about like, a very personal story about someone's life and their life now and their life in the past. But I mean, he was just fully like, this is amazing. Like
Yeah.
we knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
Would you say this is your most impactful like film in overall, just to this day?
Yeah, but bar none. I mean, in the immediate release of it, John had sent me screenshots from friends, other family members, etc., who said they watched the video, they cried at it, they had a loved one that they lost to suicide, or they're in the middle of dealing with it with somebody else right now, and they had no idea how to handle the situation at all. And John's story in the video is helping them navigate that, which is it's a surreal feeling even for myself and should be for you guys too, that like we
Yeah.
put something together that's so impactful that hasn't even been seen worldwide yet, really. It's just in the beginning stages and it's already made impactful changes, which is it's incredible.
Yeah, I think that's one of like my bucket goals is to like make something that like creates like an actual real visceral like impact and
Sure.
like
Mhm.
it sucks that it's happening so early like but like it's like it's one of
Yeah.
those things that's like
Yeah.
oh like I've always wanted to make something like impactful and I think this is kind of like exactly doing that and like also giving light on like what like our future can hold in terms
Sure.
of
Yeah.
like content moving forward and like what we
What's
decide to
capable
really
of.
specialize and on what we're capable of. Exactly.
Well, we do
Mhm.
like we do have that other documentary coming that's in that same sphere
Mhm.
of mental health or even disabilities. Like it's kind of like a great
Segue. Yeah.
gate into that world
Under-
because
Yeah, absolutely.
it is a different art of documentary. It is
Oh, for sure.
it's a much more personal thing. It's
Mhm.
not really it's not like, oh, like we're gonna go open a store, like that's documented, and you don't
Mhm.
really have to think too much about what you can and can't include. Like
Mhm.
this was a great sort of palette, to get us
For
into
sure.
that world.
Yeah, there's so many layers to this kind of stuff, but having this one type of documentary under your belt unlocks so many other things for future documentaries.
Well, I remember seeing John at Wolfsgard this year, and he was telling me like how much of a response he's had from people like across the world. He said like someone reached out to him like across the country
Yeah.
about he had the same experience, and like isn't that's amazing?
Yeah, I mean, it gives me
Already,
chills. Like
yeah.
he texts me every now and again still because he posts the video on BMW forums and everywhere that he can shows it everywhere, and he gets responses from people, and it's one of the best things ever.
Mm-hmm. So you submitted this to International Motor Film Awards Festival. Did you submit it to other ones?
Yes, we submitted it to Newport Beach Film Festival, Grand Motoring Film Festival. I'm trying to get it into others, but the other ones have certain like criterias that we have to meet. Like it can't be released it can't be released anywhere kind of criteria. So some of them we can't, unfortunately submit to, but we're trying to get it around the circuit, obviously the festival circuit and everywhere else that we can because it really needs to be heard and shown.
Mm-hmm. And because this will be coming out on the 23rd, we can announce that it did get nominated
Yes.
for Best Documentary
Yes.
Film
Nice.
Yes.
in the Motor Film Awards
Yep.
Festival, which is
Very hyped.
huge.
Yep.
Super cool.
That's like that. You've never been in that sort of sphere in
that category.
Yeah, in
No.
that category.
No, and the Motor Film Awards has thousands of submissions.
Yeah.
I don't know how many per each category, but I believe there's 20 nominations per each category, which in itself is huge. I mean, this is the Motor Film Awards is the epitome of automotive filmmaking. So to even be nominated in there is it's incredible.
awesome.
Something to be proud of for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say if you had to describe the experience as a whole? Like, what has been your biggest takeaway from working on this project? It could be a technical skill. It could be just story writing skill. It could be anything in that sphere.
I think the biggest takeaway for me, apart from the whole thing being surreal and amazing
Yeah.
project as a whole, is I consider myself an extremely busy person. Like I'm always doing something, always on the move, got to get stuff finished, go, 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 go kind of thing. In this type of scenario, especially watching Nick edit this, like actually slowing down significantly, taking a step back and really not just finishing the project for the sake of finishing the project, but really molding it into something better by taking more time with it. And not that I want to make this bad by any means, but like I'm always in such a mindset to like we need to finish this or we need to go for more. Yeah, we need to do stuff. So I think that was a huge takeaway for me because it just makes you approach situations differently.
Sure. What about you, Nick? What do you think has been your biggest?
I mean, definitely those things for sure. To like get maybe into like some other like little things, like just like dealing with so much footage. Organization of it is always good. I mean, there's definitely been some bigger projects that I've like had to organize and stuff, but like not something that has to hit as hard. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And just being able to just remember where everything is and to really just like I got to learn a lot of like how to organize this stuff and like what to do to give myself notes for the future and like how I am able to take a step away, especially considering we were doing a lot of other projects at the same time, like trying to juggle this thing and like not having like you have a deadline, but like it's far in the distance and like procrastination and like also dealing with other projects and like just monitoring and managing that time frame and as it like evaporates slowly and like and just like really like knowing your true bounds and like how far you can push to get it done on time and stuff. That that was definitely interesting. And I think the other thing is just really like what I think like we should maybe be focusing on. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
What,
there
telling people
was
stories?
yeah, I mean,
Documentaries?
telling
Yeah.
people stories, documentaries. I mean, like I really enjoyed this process because it was not just a shoot where someone has a vision and you're just executing their vision, or you're bringing small ideas to the picture, to a bigger picture. It's like, you know what? No, like we're taking your story, which is the most important part, and we're enhancing it, and we're visually matching things, and we have so many opportunities to use things that we don't get to use. I mean, one of my favorite things is I finally got to use cinematic music. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever have these like projects where I'd love to use cinematic
Yeah.
music, but then it would just like it would be
It
like
wouldn't work.
ridiculously
Yeah,
epic for no reason for like
Well, we
what,
also
like-
use cine lenses.
yeah, exactly.
Shout out
So-
Mikhail.
Shout out
thank you,
Mikhail for that.
Mikhail.
Not the second time, the first time.
The first time.
First time,
The
yeah, I
second time
couldn't, just didn't have time to go and grab them.
SP3s.
The first
The
time,
paint gross,
We also-
rehoused paint gross.
yeah,
lenses.
rehoused
We use it for
paint
Pantera too. It was like the same
ones, yeah.
same time period, or like it was
Yeah,
it was like a couple weeks.
Very similar.
Yeah.
You guys are doing this.
I think for me, I think you said it, Sam. Like, there's always a story to tell. I think, like, even past documentaries, like even just stories that you have in your head that you think can like really impact people, because like we see it firsthand. Like, this has had a real impact, and I think no idea is a bad idea. And if you have the tools to create something that matters to you, even just framing yourself as the audience, making something for you, I think there's so many benefits to that. There's so many returns on yourself, how you feel about yourself as a creator, but also like seeing the real world impact of what maybe something can inspire someone to do. Like this is a space where one thing always leads to the next. Your work can rub off on someone else and they can be inspired to make something. So I think, never be afraid to tell a story. I think is
Absolutely.
the main goal.
One thing I'll say, which is still crazy to me, and how much this was meant to happen, is that John's son, his name is AJ. My now 15-month-old son is named AJ. And up until about a month and a half ago, I just recently found out that John's son, AJ, his best friend's name was Sam. I'm Sam. It's
That's
literally
crazy.
one of the craziest things I've ever
Wow.
heard.
Yeah.
A little bit of
Yeah,
it's coming back around a little bit.
It's like
yeah,
a message from the
interesting.
universe.
Nuts.
Bit of a message, yeah.
Obviously, the documentary's named Afterglow. We said that. But what was the idea behind the name? Because I know Afterglow has a significance to John and his story.
The name I really got from John and he has a nonprofit organization called Afterglow, which is a benefit concert to raise funds for suicide awareness. It's an incredible event, and the name was really, I thought, was the most fitting thing possible.
Well, he also, like, the way in which he describes why it's named that in the website and like even in the film is like the poem, the Afterglow poem. Like, that's a beautiful poem.
Make him watch.
There's watch that.
Make him watch it.
Yeah.
Just
You
make
should
him
definitely
watch
watch it.
man.
Yeah, watch
Why
it,
are we gonna
please.
explain it here, dude? Let's just make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
No, it's great. It's absolutely great. But like the whole meaningfulness behind it is just phenomenal. I think it is the name for it. There is no other. It's one word.
It's the best thing it
It's-
could be.
yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, and if anyone's struggling out there with this kind of stuff, you can go and visit afterglowfoundation.com and check it out and get the help that you need.
Where can people watch this film?
So right now it is on my YouTube channel. You can search up Afterglow on Schwartz Films. You'll be able to find it there. You'll see a beautiful picture of a BMW E9, and it's going to be out on the film festival circuits as well. So
Prime Video too, right? Isn't it on Prime Video, or is that still being reviewed?
it's being processed. I don't know
Okay,
if it's. I
gotcha.
mean, it's licensed for it. They just have to approve it, and then
It's a long process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gotcha.
It should be on there, but yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, this has been a great talk. I think this has been a good dive into sort of the authenticities around creating a documentary in that sort of sphere of mental health, suicide, and also like all the back end of everything that had to go on. So, thanks for your time, guys. This has been
Thanks for
awesome.
hosting us.
For having us.
Awesome.